It's 9:47 p.m. You've eaten dinner, you are not hungry. You get up from the couch, walk to the kitchen, and open the fridge. Half a lemon, some yogurt, a bottle of hot sauce with a crust around the lid. The same three things that were in there at 9:41 p.m. when you last opened it. You close it. 6 minutes later, you open it again. You know nothing has changed. You watched nothing change. No one else lives here. The lemon is not going to evolve into a pizza. And yet some part of your brain is entirely convinced that if you check one more time, something new will be in there. This is not a joke. This is a 2 million-year-old hunting instinct malfunctioning in front of a GE profile side by side. Let me explain. What you're doing has an ancient cousin. Ethologists call it appetitive foraging, the constant, low-grade searching that fills the gap between meals. Your ancestors did it every single day of their lives, and they didn't do it because they were bored. They did it because if they didn't eat. For most of human evolutionary history, food was not a thing that sat behind a door. Food was a thing that moved. It hid. It ran. It rotted. It existed on a schedule nobody had told you about. So your brain evolved a very specific loop. Check the berry bush. Nothing today. Check the trap line. Empty. Check the shallows for fish. Maybe. Check the bush again. Wait, there's one now. The loop wasn't stupid. The loop was survival. Because the whole point of foraging is that outcomes are uncertain. And the animals that gave up too early starved, and the animals that kept checking one more time, occasionally, ate. You are the descendant of the ones who kept checking. Congratulations, you cannot stop opening the fridge. Now, here's where it gets weird. In the early 1990s, a Swiss neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz was recording single neurons in the brains of monkeys. He was interested in one specific chemical, dopamine, and he was doing something very simple. He would flash a light, then a few seconds later, a drop of juice would land on the monkey's tongue. At first, the monkey's dopamine neurons fired when the juice arrived. Makes sense. Juice good, brain happy. But after a few rounds, something strange happened. The dopamine didn't fire when the juice arrived anymore. It fired earlier, the instant the light came on. The brain had learned that the light meant juice was coming, so the dopamine wasn't rewarding the juice. It was rewarding the prediction of the juice. Then Schultz did the thing that broke everything. He made the juice random. Sometimes the light meant juice. Sometimes it meant nothing. The monkey never knew. The dopamine neurons went berserk, not less active, more. What Schultz had stumbled into is now called reward prediction error. Dopamine doesn't just track rewards, it tracks the gap between what your brain expected and what actually shows up. When the outcome violates the prediction, especially when something better than expected appears, the system registers that surprise and updates the search. Uncertainty doesn't invent the craving. It keeps the possibility alive. And this, roughly, is your fridge. You are the monkey. The fridge door is the light. The leftover pad thai you might have forgotten about is the juice you might get. Except, you already know there is no pad thai. That's the joke. That's the whole joke. Let me put you inside this. It's Tuesday. You're working from home. You've had a coffee, you've had a snack, you have a spreadsheet open that you do not want to look at. You stand up. You do not decide to stand up. Your body just stands up. Some ancient middle manager in your brainstem has issued the command, and your legs comply. You walk to the kitchen. You don't think about it. You don't narrate it. You just arrive. Your hand finds the fridge handle. Your hand has done this so many times it doesn't need supervision. Your hand is basically freelance at this point. You open the door, the little light comes on, the cold air hits your face. Your dopamine system reports for duty like a golden retriever hearing a bag of chips open in another room. You survey your kingdom. Mustard. A wilting scallion. 3 condiments you bought for one specific recipe in 2022 and have not used since. Some yogurt whose expiration date you refuse to make eye contact with. You close the door. You walk back to your desk. 12 minutes later, you do it again. Nothing has changed. Nothing was ever going to change. But every time your hand touches that handle, a tiny casino opens in your brain, and the dealer says, maybe this time. The technical name for this loop is variable ratio reinforcement, and it's one of the most persistent patterns in behavioral science. Reward something predictably, and the behavior becomes easier to predict. Reward it sometimes, at unpredictable intervals, and the behavior can become remarkably persistent. B.F. Skinner mapped this out with pigeons and a food dispenser in the mid-20th century. The pigeons who lived in maybe kept pecking. Skinner had described the same structural pattern that sits underneath slot machines. email inboxes, dating apps, loot boxes, your Instagram feed, and, although he did not know it, the way you interact with your own fridge. The pigeons are you. The fridge is the box that sometimes has cheese. And here's where it gets stranger. The fridge is worse than the berry bush. At least the berry bush had real randomness. Sometimes the birds hadn't found the ripe ones yet. Sometimes there was fruit that wasn't there yesterday. Your ancestors' maybe was a real maybe, tuned by a real ecosystem. Your fridge is a sealed box with a light in it. Its contents are 100% determined by whether you or the people you live with have physically placed food inside since the last time you looked. You know this. You know this at a level so fundamental it barely qualifies as knowledge. It is closer to gravity. And it does not matter. Your dopamine system did not read the memo. Your dopamine system does not care about physics. It is running an ancient search algorithm on 21st century Whirlpool hardware, and it will keep querying that database until the day you die. 7 times a night. Every night. For the rest of your life. And here's the part nobody talks about. The fridge is not special. The fridge is just the most obvious example of a much bigger pattern. You do the same thing with your phone. You unlock it, nothing new, you lock it. 90 seconds later, you unlock it again. You do it with your email, you refresh, nothing. You refresh again. You do it with the mailbox, with the front window when you're waiting for a package, with the oven, watching a pizza that will not cook faster because you keep opening the door. Every one of these is your foraging brain doing what it was built to do. Sample the environment, check for updates, keep the search alive. Inside an environment where updates arrive by algorithm and truck on schedules you cannot influence by looking. You are not checking the fridge because you are weak. You are checking the fridge because you are running a wildly successful piece of ancient software in a place it was never designed to run. You are a hunter with nothing to hunt. And this is the strange, quiet mercy of the whole thing. If you actually manage to shut this loop off, if some pharmaceutical company figured out how to switch off appetitive foraging in the human brain, you would not become calm. You would not become productive. You would become something much worse. You would become a person who does not check. That person doesn't look up when their kid walks into the room. That person doesn't glance at the horizon. That person doesn't wonder what's on the other side of the door. That person doesn't get curious about anything ever because curiosity is just foraging in a dress. The same circuit that makes you open the fridge for the 7th time is the circuit that made your great-great-grandmother check one more valley for water and find it. It's the circuit that makes you keep reading a book past midnight. It's the circuit that makes you say, "Let me look into that," and actually mean it. It's not a bug, it's the whole engine. The fridge is just where you can see it working in its dumbest, most naked form. A tiny cold-lit stage where 2 million years of survival instinct puts on a nightly one-act play called Maybe There's Cheese. So the next time you find yourself standing there at 11:14 p.m., staring at the same wilting scallion for the 4th time in an hour, try this. Don't feel bad. Don't call yourself weak. Don't Google dopamine detox. Just notice it. Notice the little animal in there. Still hunting. Still hopeful. Still, after everything, checking one more time in case the world has changed while you weren't looking. Give it a nod. Close the door. It'll be back.